Great, thank you. Do we have anybody on Zoom? Okay, do we have any public participation? If you are on Zoom, raise your hand or let Tammy know. Okay, great. We're going to push the presentation out because the individual doing the presentation is in another meeting. Appointed representative liaison reports. Do we have Jim Strange? We'll defer because he'll show back up. So the ESD did have a nice little kind of ceremony to end the Argyle Volunteer Fire Department and to begin the ESD. So that happened between last session and this. And it was good to see, again, it was good to see everything. It was just a nice little program. It was private. It was just, yeah. Denton County Emergency Services District Number 1, Jim Strange. Oh, perfect timing, Jim. That presentation will come after you. We want to do the important stuff first. Thank you, sir.
I'm in a big boy. Thank you. Sorry about that.
We're here for you.
Zone, right? Okay, we had our last board meeting on September the 24th. It was an abbreviated meeting, actually. It was almost like an old home week. We had the Honorable Mayor Bill Shearer show up. He was the guest of honor. But he went, what's he doing here? But very few items were actually covered. They did cover the part about the budget. And I still can't get the two numbers to match, but they, on a 5.3 or 5.31 budget, they came in 269,000 per plan.
Okay.
And that was based on overtime. Because if you understand the COVID bit, when they actually carried somebody, that crew was gone for 6 to 10 days. They're off.
Oh, so as long if the person came up hot, they didn't wait for them to get
right
tested and confirmed. Okay,
gosh, I'm sure it's less than a little bit by now. Calls for the month 209 for the entire district. Mutual aid given was 16, received 1. Light siren was right at 1 minute, so that was great. It improved by 0.25%. And average calls from dispatch to arrival is 6 minutes and 53 seconds, which is pretty good. It beats the 7 to 8 minutes that we've seen in the past. But anything remarkable or any questions that y'all might have? But nothing really else came out of the meeting besides there's a lot of folks. It was a packed house. The ESD was there.
No, it was a very nice send off. Yeah. So again, it was just neat seeing everyone, and
it was good to see you there.
So, again, you guys have done a lot of great work, and it was nice that they took the time to recognize everything you guys have done over the years. So that was fantastic.
And I want to thank y'all as always for allowing me to participate. Things will come. It'll be like an advisory group or something.
Yeah. So the way it is they're no longer the board. The board is now 3 people: Jim Carter, the guy from Montana, and somebody else, and they're now an advisory board. So, but again, I think we're well represented with Jim on the board. So I think Bartonville is quite frankly in good shape. Terrific. Jim, thank you.
I think you do.
Chief?
Yeah. So there's your monthly, did you get a? There's the charts there. September 2020, self-initiated totals, 431. You notice traffic stops were 101 of those, with 50 being resulting in citations, 41 in warnings, and 10 were others, been an arrest or whatever. I didn't do a whole lot of research on that. Then your September 2020 calls, which would result in some sort of paperwork being done, 104, which would bring the total to 535 total points of activity. If you have any questions about any of those calls on there, I've tried to put them most to least. Make it a little easier to read. Happy to answer them. See anything stick? Most of them? Oh no, most of them are interior. Mm-hmm. Not a whole lot coming off 407 right now. Most of it's interior roads. So they're spending most of their time. I'm sorry. I'd say, based on court, probably the vast majority of them are non-residents.
Yeah, and I've noticed that as well. Driving through, you have a lot that comes down Jeter, then cuts down Porter, Red Rock.
That's up to y'all.
No crashes?
We had three.
We can absolutely look at all options, but we're also having conversations just as an off topic with the new county road director, scheduling that now to have that conversation. Yes, I know it's not on the agenda, but
So the three
Germain
crashes, Josh, were actually on 407. So one more thing I'd like to add, if there, we'll update with the block ALPR cameras. Installation date is the 27th of October. It'll be next Tuesday. It could be anywhere from 1 to 3 days. And then they do some things on the back end. Block does to make sure everything's in compliance with TLITs down at DPS in Austin. Kind of a trial period. And then we go online. But any questions y'all have about that, I'd be happy to answer them.
so, Chief, just one of the things I will throw in was part of our conversation that we were having before the meeting today, which is the only information they get initially is the license plate number, the time and the location. So it's not like they're sitting there splashing out that it was, individual's name or anything else. It's not doing that scanning, at least on the normal documentation as to who's driving by.
No, there could be, depending on the speed of the vehicle, there could be 3 captures. If they're going slow enough, it's motion activated, so there's one. And then however much further that aperture catches it, there's a sequence. No, they're not designed to do the front because not every vehicle has a front license plate. So they set the camera up to capture the rear of the vehicle. Now, that's not to say that something coming at it might capture it. That's not how it's set up. One thing that if anybody asks you any questions about the system, the policy is written as such that the only time we're going to see personal data is if we have to have a reason to do that, and that's the way the policy is written. You can't just surf it, right? So if it's captured from that camera, we have to manually either run the plate on our in-car system or log into the system and do a search that way. It will be notified in 3 ways. There's a website portal, email, and text, so we can be notified. Good, depending on which camera catches them. Well, they'll be logged into it, and it will send out a notification that it'll be set up to where it will ping or it'll do something. And they have a PD cell phone that's going to be active also that will make a noise. Let them know. So if something comes up, we can address it. Any other?
Chief, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Town Administrator?
Thank you, Mayor. Just some quick notes on the reports that were included in your agenda packet. The first for the financial report, the summary page shows the FY 19-20 budget as amended. So that's where you see all of those figures. You may notice a significant spike in the other transfers section, and that's just from the COVID funds that were transferred from Denton County. So that's why you see that significant spike. Our sales tax for September is still strong, was up 6.1% compared to September of last year. And also included is our quarterly investment report for July through September, which shows a little over $3,500 was earned in interest. We will get an update on our engineering projects later. Mr. Gary Vickery is on the Zoom call today, and so he'll be going over a quick recap of our 2019 residential streets project later on in the agenda. But our animal control and our building report showed standard activities. Building report shows 12 building permits and 6 contractor registrations that were performed in the month of September.
Perfect. Thank you, ma'am. Town Secretary?
I just want to give an update on the general election or the special election. The early voting, we've posted on our website next door. I've done a couple of blasts. I'll do a couple of more before the November 3rd. We'll get that information out there. I noticed today, Clay, that you posted on Nextdoor about the curbside voting. So what they did today, that's called curbside voting for people that are unable to walk into the polling location. I'll include that information in the next blast. So if you have somebody that can't go in and you have somebody that's driven you there, all you need to do is go in, you pass everybody up in line and say, I have somebody out in my car for curbside voting. And so the election officials, typically it's the judge, they'll take the equipment out to the vehicle for that person that's disabled that can't get out of the car, and they'll take the equipment out there for them to vote so they don't ever have to leave. So that was a great compliment. I did a screenshot, sent it to the election administrator, and it made his day. He said of all the negativity, it was great to get a positive comment. So microphone, please.
Someone needed to know that these retirees or whoever's working those, I mean, they went the extra yard in order to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to vote. Didn't matter what happened, what kind of physical condition you're in, they'd be out there on the curbside and they will let you vote.
The county works real hard at, they work real hard to train all their election workers to do that.
Now, do they
And
do
hopefully
that?
we'll have that same courtesy because on election day. So during early voting, you can vote anywhere in the county.
Right.
On election day, you have to vote at your precinct, and town hall will be the precinct for the Bartonville voters for 4021. And,
Now,
and they'll have that same opportunity here.
Do you know, is that for all election sites?
Yes, sir.
Oh, it is.
Yes, sir.
Well, after I put that post on there, I got all kind of calls, and now I've got a whole week worth of work in front of me. I got to take people to the
And
polls.
if you go to votedenton.com, they have the options for curbside voting, and they also have information in future elections for people that are blind. They have specific booths set up for other people with disabilities. So if they're blind, different types of equipment, everything to help with all types of disabilities. So they make it available for everybody.
They deserve kudos.
And that's all I have.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Consent agenda. This agenda consists of non-controversial housekeeping or housekeeping items required by law. Items may be approved in a single motion. Items may be removed from the consent agenda by any council member by making such request prior to motion and vote on the consent agenda. Item number 1, consider approval of the July 14th, 2020 special meeting and working session meeting minutes. Item number 2, consider approval of the July 21st, 2020 regular meeting minutes. Item number 3, consider approval of the July 18th, 2020 working session meeting minutes. Item number 4, consider approval of the August 11th, 2020 special meeting minutes. Item number 5, consider approval of the August 18th, 2020 regular meeting minutes. Item number 6, consider approval of the September 15th, 2020 regular meeting minutes. Item number 7, consider approval of a resolution appointing Gina Pierce as the deputy court clerk. Item number 8, consider approval of an agreement with William C. Spores, PC, for external auditing services, the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2020, and authorize the town administrator to execute same on behalf of the town. Item number 9, consider approval of a resolution approving an extension of the bank depository service agreement between the town of Bartonville and Independent Bank for a period of 1 year continuing through July 31st, 2021, and authorizing the town administrator to execute agreement execution documents on behalf of the town. Item number 10, consider approval of extend the annual contract for miscellaneous pavement repairs and drainage improvements with SPI Asphalt LLC for a period of 1 year continuing through October 31st, 2021. Council, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we accept the consent agenda.
Do we have a second? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, council. Item number 11, discuss and consider approval of a waiver from Chapter 10 Subdivision Regulations, Exhibit A, Development Ordinance, Chapter 3, Subdivision Design Standards, Section 3.5 lots, subsection B, to allow for the creation of a flag lot on an irregularly shaped tract of land. The property is a 105.82 acre tract of land being described as Lot 2, Block A, Robert Evans Ranch Edition, Town of Bartonville, Denton County, Texas, located in the south side of West Jeter Road. The property is generally located at 1047 West Jeter Road. Planning and zoning recommended approval by a vote of 5-0 at its October 7th, 2020 meeting. I've got a question, but I heard an indication that you may have a question. It is. It's and that's where I was going. It's contiguous to the ETJ.
It
So-
is.
So on that property, you know, as I'm looking at that, can they extend any roads to connect with the First Ranch stuff after this is set up?
Well, so this item is just for the flag lot waiver. However, anything having to do with streets would have to come in at a later time for review and approval by E&Z and yourself.
Yes.
Yes, there is. So there is a current driveway. It's already there. It's been there for several years. It's off of Jeter Road, and that driveway would lead into the flag lot. The house that they are intending to build will be on the other lot. So the flag lot will remain as is.
Can you restate that about what has to happen should they, so no road can ever come off that in ETJ?
So Ed, correct me if I'm wrong. We can't, for them to propose a road, they would have to go before planning and zoning and town council in order for there to be a road in that area, correct?
Yes, if it's going to be a public road, it can't happen until the town council approves it, because you've got to see if it's on your thoroughfare plan and into the comprehensive plan. And if not, you've got to amend that. And then you have to determine what it's going to be and all sorts of conditions and set it up beforehand. That's not to say that someone can't build a private drive or an access or something if they want to connect properties, but that's the same whether it's in the town or outside of the town.
But Ed, just staying on that topic, if they built the road, made a private road, but made it accessible to all, could they do that?
Yeah, if it's not a public road, sure. It's, private roads get built all the time. They're maintained by private people. But I think that, we definitely want to look at it, but private roads happen from time to time. It's just not something that the town would maintain or have any responsibility for. But to call it a road to me is, without knowing more about the site or anything, I would just call it access.
So again, you can see where the thought process is going. Again, one of our primary concerns with First Ranch is to make sure that the traffic density from that property does not have a negative impact on the quality of life of the citizens park.
And I would say that you don't have to allow access of a private road to any public road. So just because it comes on a piece of property, that to me can be where it stops.
So if it were a private road, and I wanted to take that private road, into that private road, I couldn't do so without it being considered for public access. Is that what he's saying?
No, what he's saying is they could not connect, and Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, you cannot connect that private road to a public road.
Not without y'all say so.
Yes, without us approving it.
But won't this road be connected to Jeter?
It will, but again, the question becomes any future addition.
Because this road's already connected to you, is that right?
Right.
Okay, so they're just wanting to do like flag lot using the same.
The
Yeah,
issue would be,
it's a
so
long driveway.
This is Jack's property, correct?
No, this is Mr. Evans, Robert Evans.
Okay. So he's just breaking up his property so that he, again,
Okay.
potentially subdivide, and let's face it,
Yeah, he's not.
it's a short-term problem. Again, this is something we just need to keep an eye on, because it could be, I mean, let's face it, he could connect it, sell it back to Jack, use it, put it as part of First Ranch, and then we just need to keep an eye on it to make sure that does not become a traffic burden to Bartonville.
The citizens would be upset if we didn't do our homework.
Well, and again, I mean, I don't know that, other than restricting the flag lot, which I'm not sure is fair to the property owner, but, we need to be careful on this, because Ed, as I look at this, the private road is already connected to a public road. So if you connected a private road to the existing private road and you're connected to the public road.
Again, I don't see a road anywhere on here. I see driveways.
Got it. Okay. So the driveway is not a private road. It's a driveway. So consequently, as soon as it became large enough to be considered a road, we would then have it as part of the approval process.
That's right.
Okay. That make everybody feel better? Perfect. Great. Ed, thank you. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve a waiver from Chapter 10 subdivision regulations, Exhibit A, Development Ordinance, Chapter 3, subdivision design standards, Section 2.5, Lot subdivision, subsection B, to allow for the creation of a flag lot on an irregular shaped tract of land generally located at 1047 West Jeter Road.
Do we have a second? All in favor? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, council. What's that? Excellent.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no,
I
absolutely. Let's go-
remind you
let's go to
guys
the
all the time
presentation.
about your microphones. And if you want to go to the podium, Dwayne.
Hello, Dwayne Skrabarsik, 138 Green Oaks Drive. I also am a member of the Bartonville Economic Development, Community Development Corporation. I am here tonight to introduce a consultant that we have been in contact with. He's presented to us on several fronts, one of which is to help review the 380 agreement that we have here in town, and then also give us guidance, advisement on how we can attract the right businesses to our town. So I'd like to introduce Aaron Farmer. He is with the Retail Coach.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for the introduction. And Mayor and Council, I want to apologize for being a little late today. I was in another City Council meeting that just wrapped up, but excited to be here and excited to really get to show you this information. Tammy, should I just share my screen? Is that okay?
Unfortunately, I'm not able to, we have shared screen shut off, so I have your presentation up, and just let me know when you want me to switch.
Okay, perfect. So just looking at this partnership that we have with the Development Corporation, really focused on really understanding Bartonville, really understanding where your customers, where your customers that shop and eat in the community, where they come from. So in order to do this, we have looked at a number of different things, but really what we call a market analysis. And that's where our team has been on the ground in Bartonville, spending quite a bit of time in the community, getting an understanding of what the opportunities are and where people are coming from. So the first thing that we did is we ran a cell phone analysis. And if I was there in person, I would ask each of you to, really just raise your hand and tell me if you have a cell phone. But I know the answer to that. Most of us nowadays have a cell phone, and if you do have a cell phone, you're being tracked, and not necessarily in a bad way, but to where we can see who is shopping, who is eating in the community. So if we can flip to slide 3, Tammy, this is the Lantana Town Center, and this is what we call a heat map. But if you're looking at this slide here, you'll see some different colors on the screen here: the reds, the blues, the greens, the yellows. The red on the map, that's where your highest concentrations of consumers are coming from. So you can see consumers coming from, really all over the area, but into Copper Canyon, into Highland Village, down into kind of the northwest corner of Flower Mound, as you head out towards like North Lake and Robeson Ranch and those areas out there. These are where your consumers are coming from. So as long as you have a cell phone, or your consumers do, and they walk into a location in the town center, in Lantana Town Center, we're able to track where they're coming from. So this is what it's incredibly important to know who your consumers are, where they're coming from, how far away they're coming from. So that's what we're looking at. If we flip to slide 4, this shows us that within the last 12 months, so everything we're looking at here is within the last 12 months, you've had 190,000 unique visitors to Lantana Town Center. And that's a huge amount of people that have shopped or ate in Lantana Town Center. But those 190,000 people are making 1.4 million visits. So they're making multiple visits to the market, and very, very strong draw there. On the bottom of this slide, you can see the number of visits. You really average anywhere from 3,000 to 6,000 visitors per day that are coming in there. The busiest day of the year was really at Lantana Town Center was the day before Christmas, is what it looks like. So Christmas Eve, or that week before, you had a spike on May 8th. I think that was people getting out again after the lockdowns that we had. But if we flip to page 5, this just goes to show us the hours and how busy at different times of the day, and what the busiest days are at Lantana Town Center. So it's no surprise, Saturday and Sunday are the busiest days at the town center. And you can see really from about 12 o'clock until about 6 p.m. It's pretty consistent. Most of your visitors come from within that time frame, but it's pretty consistent that are coming during those hours. Looking at slide 6, we looked at Marty B's. We knew they had a huge draw. We knew people were coming large distances to really come to Marty B's for the restaurant, but also for the entertainment. And I just wanted to just kind of show you what that map looks like. So when you see the blues on the map, those are people that are have made one visit to Marty B's. You're pulling people from all over this region that are coming to Marty B's. But again, the reds, the yellows, the greens, those are your regular consumers. You'll notice just on the southwest side of Denton, you'll see a big red kind of dot there right under where it says Denton. That is UNT. Thought it was interesting, but you've got a number of consumers that a number of students that are coming to Marty B's, again, out towards Robeson Ranch, out towards the North Lake, the Justin areas, but then into really the Louisville area, Flower Mound that are coming there. So it's really unique and interesting to see how large of a draw that not only Lantana Town Center and some of your other businesses have, but Marty B's and what they're bringing in. So looking at slide 7, at Marty B's, again, this is looking at a 12-month period. You had 178,000 consumers that visited Marty B's. That's also a very large number of consumers. They made about 368,000 visitors. So the average consumer to Marty B's is coming about two 2.07 times over the year. And then you can see on their on the graph here, it shows the days and the busiest days. But we saw as soon as that quarantine and the shutdown happened around March, the end of March, really through the first part of May, they really didn't have any visitors. But we're back to almost pre-COVID numbers, and in some cases higher now. But very interesting to see where people are coming from Marty B's, was coming from such a far distance away. If you look at page 8 or slide 8, what this shows us is it makes sense, but the busiest time of day for them is really that 6 to 8 time period into 9 o'clock hour. And then Saturday is by far the busiest day, followed by Friday and then Sunday. So
quick question.
Sure.
So during the pandemic, how long does that cell phone have to physically be at that site before it gets picked up and counted?
As soon as it comes on, basically, as soon as the way it works, and I appreciate the question, but the way that it works is we draw a polygon around these areas. So for Marty B's, for example, we drew a polygon around the actual venue and then the parking lot. And as long as somebody enters that polygon, that's when we start tracking them, is as soon as they enter that polygon that we've drawn.
Okay. And I would make the statement that is not truly representative of how well Marty was doing, because what you may have is 5 of you may go to eat because you're taking the family, but if you send the husband off to go pick up the food, he goes by himself. Because again, I think Marty did better than that, just as an FYI. All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. And those numbers look good. And we have a formula that we use to pick up, number of visitors, and how we also are able to tell how long they stay there. But based off of this data, that I've showed you in a lot more data that we've come up with. If you'll flip to page 10 for me, I want to talk about the retail trade area analysis. So we've determined a primary trade area. This is your core customer. This is that Bartonville core consumer that's shopping or eating in Bartonville on a regular basis. You can see it extends out a little bit past 35 West, includes Ropes and Ranch, up 35W, over past Copper Canyon, Double Oak, in, like I said, to the northwest, kind of Flower Mound area along the lake. This is your core customer. So if you flip slides there, within that primary trade area, there's 60,203 people that consider Bartonville really their retail home, or where they do most of their retail shopping. I just wanted to point out on this screen, and we've run a full demographic profile, but just to show you here, the average household income within this primary trade area is $194,000. So a very strong income. We knew it would be high, but $194,000 is that average household income for the primary trade area. And like I said, we've got literally hundreds of pages of demographic data, but I wanted to point out those. So the primary trade area is at 70 to 80% of consumers that are in Bartonville. And then the secondary trade area are those consumers, which is on slide 12. Those are those consumers that maybe they're not coming every week, but maybe they're coming on the weekend or making, a couple trips a month. That's who we're considering that secondary trade area. It extends out to the west, towards North Lake. It actually extends out, includes kind of the Hickory Creek, Corinth, into the kind of Shady Shores area. And then also up on the north side, you'll see just that little sliver that includes kind of UNT and what we found from the students going there. But that secondary retail trade area is a large trade area. And within that trade area, the population is 177,791. Usually when we get to a larger trade area like this, you see incomes drop pretty dramatically, but your incomes within this area are still 163,314. So that all looks positive there. So the secondary would be that other 20 to 30,000 or 20 to 30% of consumers that are shopping or eating in Bartonville on a yearly basis as well. And then the last two slides for you, slide 14, we looked at what is that retail demand. So not only how many people live within that primary trade area, how many people live within that secondary trade area, we were interested to see the demand for different categories. So whether it was restaurants, fast food, whether it was casual sit-down restaurants, we've looked at about 75 different sectors, and we've come up with the 2020 demand within that area. So what is your opportunity in 2020? But then we also projected that out for 5 years, so to 2025. So I won't go through all of this with you, but you'll be able to look through these different categories. Grocery stores, for example, within the primary trade area, which is about halfway down on slide 14, the 2020 demand is about $109 million. But that's projected to grow to $132 million in 2025. So slide 14 and 15 really look at that retail demand analysis and really what those opportunities are there. So in a nutshell, that is those are some reports from the retail market analysis that we put together. I will tell you, you've got a large draw with Lantana Town Center and also Marty B's, but we are continuing to track this information, the data, the analysis portion of it, and would love to open it up for questions if that's okay.
So question, there's plans for a grocery store in, near Harvest. What does your analysis say? What impact will that have within Lantana Town Center?
So I think you will see an impact there. How much of an impact? I haven't done the analysis to see that yet. However, the good news is, like we talked about, there's about a $20 million demand is supposed to increase in grocery stores by about 20 million. So I don't think you'll see, I think you'll see a hit, but I don't think it'll be that much. Just looking at some of the initial numbers we've looked at. And, with Kroger being such a destination, consumers have habits that they built over years. So we expect a lot of those habits to continue. However, you will see a cutoff towards Harvest for some of those consumers not coming quite as often.
Yeah, I have a question, and I was trying to think back to that slide I just saw. I get inquiries on a weekly basis. Every time that I speak to someone that has a need for this, they always ask, why can't we have that out here? And I was just trying to look at your number there on slide 14 on like auto parts stores. What are your projections there on that, on the need?
So, I think there is a need for an auto parts store if you're just looking at the numbers. Now, you're limited on space and available properties in the community. So, it would depend on, the opportunities and space that's available there. But if you're looking solely at the numbers, there shows that there's opportunity. However, when these auto parts stores or any other type of businesses looking for a location, they're not just looking at demand. They're looking at price of land. They're looking at competition. Is there competition, how far down the road? Where are their existing locations? So I haven't dove that deeply enough yet to tell you about a specific category, but as we move forward in this process, we'll dig a little bit deeper, but those are some of the things we would look at.
And where are you getting your data?
Yeah, so to kind of answer that question, we use a number of different data sources. We use all of the major data sources like InfoUSA, Claritas, Esri, and others out there. We also look at Council of Government numbers. And then we also have our proprietary models that we use for certain reports, such as what we're looking at right here. So we use a lot of state averages, and then we use income indexes. So a lot of them are proprietary models, but the base data for this came from Claritas, was the base data provider. And that's in the retail industry. They're the number one respected data provider out there.
Clay, what I would tell you, if you look at auto parts stores, there's 2 or 3 of them right down 407 in Flower Mound. We also have a couple of them off of 377 there in Roanoke. So, what you see is we're kind of, while we may not have one here, they're kind of ringing the area.
Yeah, because the nearest one is like O'Reilly's. And they tried to put one right there next to
Great. Hey, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. Next time I'd love to do this in person, but appreciate y'all making time for us today, and we'll be talking to you soon. Thank you.
Item number 12, discussion on 2019 residential road projects.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So, Mr. Gary Vickery is on the Zoom call with us today, but in summary, just wanted to get some feedback from council before we move forward. There are some remaining funds left on the 2019 tax note. Approximately, we have a $1.4 million tax note, and we've earned some interest on it. So when you deduct the current contract ceiling that we have with Rock Solid, we have a little over $300,000 left to dedicate to other street projects. So myself, Gary, Mayor Pro Tem have been working on just kind of, seeing what the need is in Bartonville. And so Gary put together this list of potential projects that we can dedicate funding to. Mayor Pro Tem was not able to join us, but he did provide us with his recommendations, his suggestions of where to dedicate these $300,000 to. And I think everyone has a copy of the email with his suggestions. So please let us know if you have any questions.
So I would sit there and say, any of you that have gone out with Mayor Pro Tem know that, quite frankly, he's got quite the eye for road issues and road problems. Does anybody have an issue with this list? Do we have a motion to approve the list as provided by the Mayor Pro Tem for the use of the $315,000 in the 2019 Road Projects Fund?
Mayor, this is just a discussion.
Oh, okay. Well, cool. Any more discussion? Perfect. Item number 13, discuss and consider approval of an ordinance amending the Town of Bartonville Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Animal Control, entitled Article 2.01, General Provisions, by amending Section 2.01.005, titled Nuisances, by adding a new subsection requiring the removal and disposal of animal waste from public areas.
So this was requested by Mayor Pro Tem. He has received a couple of complaints, and he himself was also out on walks, and I guess he saw some animal waste. So he suggested adding this subsection to the nuisances, maybe to kind of encourage residents to, I guess, pick up after their animals. The enforcement under this falls under the animal control officer. Residents are also encouraged, if they see something, to file a citizen's complaint.
So again, this is specific to just the public roads, basically, and it's primarily, again, I've heard the same thing from a couple of citizens, that it's primarily the concerns of horses walking down the street, leaving their waste on the road, many times in front of people's driveways, and they're just not wanting to drive through it, drag it onto their property, into their garages or whatnot. It's one of those things of going, most people would think it'd be common decency to clean up after your animal, but I will tell you, I've gone out, several times on Rockgate with a shovel and moved it from the street into drainage area.
So, looking at this ordinance, it's feedback that I've gotten on this so far is from the citizens understand that when you talk about domesticated animals, they understand the barking and the dogs and the fecal material they leave on your driveways or on your sidewalks, although we don't have a lot of sidewalks here except in Saddlebrook. Now, having said that, though, the biggest concern that they are is the horse people that do ride or animals that break out and get into the right of way of Bartonville, and they excrete on that bar ditch. Citizens are upset that we're trying to be big brother, big government, to tell them about their animals. They can't ride their horses in the bar ditches because of excreting material. And I understand that this is a rural area, but I think that might be far reaching when it comes to the horses and being able to ride them in bar ditches and not being able to either have to put diapers on.
So I think the concern is not the bar ditches. The concern is the physical roads. And based upon what I've heard, and if those particular horse owners are quite frankly being respectful of others and riding the bar ditches, I don't think anybody has a concern. I mean, again, I wouldn't care if somebody's horse, takes care of their business on the grass in the bar ditch. The question becomes on the roads where the cars are driving through them and then tracking the manure, onto people's property, into people's garages, I think is where I've heard the concern.
Well, and I can agree there, but see, when you read this thing, when you try to explain it to some citizens, they say, if you look at the reading on this, we're not distinguishing between the bar ditches and highway or hard surfaces. They're concerned that they may get a citation or a nuisance notification because the animals are speeding in the bar ditches. And my state members know we're talking about, totally different, primarily the dogs. And they say, well, we just need to reword this because it says failing to restrain or prevent domestic animals, and they're talking about domestic animals. Horses are included in this. That's where we need to be a little more clear about these animals. If they can still ride them in the bar ditches, and animals do not have to wear diapers when in the bar ditch, but it's only cleaning up on the roadway on hard surfaces. Maybe that's something we can put in there.
So when I originally read it, I thought the same thing, and then when I just went through it again.
Ed, would bar ditches fall under Parkway because it's the area between the street and the property line?
Yeah, and the parkway is another thing I've got highlighted here.
Yeah, it could.
Animal waste in parkways. We'll see parkways, that's far reaching, because that's anywhere within the bar ditches to into the property owners in the middle of the street.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. How do you enforce something like this? Because, I mean, occasionally I see something in the road, but I don't know when it was left, and I don't know where. I mean, I see horses occasionally at the store or something, but how do you enforce that?
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to enforce. So unless the animal control officer sees it, then he could write a citation. If a citizen or resident were to see it and the animal control officer is not present, then they would have to come in and file a citizen's complaint.
But could we make a statement that, no, the dog's are gonna use the driveway or the bar ditches or the side of the grass?
I don't know that anybody is concerned about the bar ditches. I mean, if we made some type of adjustment that basically, excluded the bar ditches, it's the concrete roads or the asphalt roads where I've heard the complaint. Where the horses again will, and it's not that anybody's anti-horse. They just, nobody wants to drive through manure of any type and then drive it up their own road and then into their own garage. And I think that's where the concern is. And the majority of our horse owners in the town of Martinville are respectful people. There's a few bad apples, and I think that's what the intent of this particular ordinance was to deal with.
See, I've never heard of any complaints about the material left by animals that citizens have complained about finding. The complaints that I'm getting off of this, questions I've had is, what about when I ride my horse in the bar ditch? Well, that's their question. That's not a complaint. They just want to make sure that if this does pass, that technically they're in violation because it says in the parkway and they're material. So could we put something in there that would not apply to horses except on hard surfaces?
Ed, recommendation?
Hi, Ed. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I recommend that that I work with staff about coming up with more particular language based on what I'm hearing tonight, and then bring it back to the council by next meeting.
Terrific. Everybody good with that? Yeah. And Clay, I agree with you because again, that's the parkway. The last thing you want is, I'll say Rockade as an example. You know, people walk their dogs all the time. There's always, you know, crap in the bar ditch in front of the house. And you know what? It's your country living. I don't think anybody has a concern to include horses. It's again, the people that I'm hearing complain about it, it's on that hard surface where, you know, they got no choice but to drive through it.
I agree. I mean, I don't want to be too far reaching, but yeah, I agree. I understand.
So I think we're at a point that we're all in concurrence. Everybody okay with that? Terrific. Let's see. Time being 7:54, we are adjourned.
Good. All right. It's an early night.
Good seeing y'all. Y'all take care.
Thanks, Ed. Take care.
All right. Chief.